What is up, sports fans? Welcome back to another episode of Pez's Picks. I'm Hartman, joined by Pez. Listen, before we get to the introductions, if you are watching this live on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe to the Fans First Sports Network channel. You don't want to miss out on any of the latest and greatest around the world of sports. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, do us a solid and give us a 5-star rating. It does help. So, from snowy northeast United States is Pez from a blizzard. What's up, Pez? You're going the wrong direction, man. Most people are going south. You're headed north.
Jeff, at Pez's Picks, we go into the hardest games, the hardest matchups. We try to find the hardest natural environments to get up and to find the advantages and find the little chinks in the armor of all these gambling plays that we're putting in. We're up here. We're trying to focus with the New England Patriots, trying to get that train back in order. About an hour from the practice facility up here in the Green Mountains of Vermont. So we're digging deep up here. This is when you get back to your roots. You feel it in your bones, as the Grateful Dead heads say. And we're feeling some winners. We're coming off a good week last week.
We are. And so you go back to the first round of picks that we had. We finished 4-3. So we go to last week. We're picking the Thursday and Friday slate of games. And we picked 3 games on Thursday. And I even sent you a text message saying, this is not looking good, because on Thursday we finished 1-2. Let's recap those picks and then I'll get your thoughts. Your libido play of the week, your Arizona Wildcats completely lay an egg and lose to Clemson straight up. Alabama beats UNC straight up. We lose that one. The only saving grace was that UConn absolutely annihilates San Diego State and they cover the 10-point spread. Pez, we finished 1-2 on Thursday. That's not good. What was going on?
Well, I mean, I think the whole tournament, we've seen bad shooting, Jeff, and teams have been going out. Outside shooting's been off. Teams that have been getting the ball, working it down low with big men, more traditional basketball that we're not seeing in the NBA much anymore. Purdue and NC State, UConn are showing this too. A little bit more consistent. Shooting, Carolina put up a goose egg. Arizona just limped through too. And, Clemson had a couple hot shooters, and teams that had a couple guys coming in hot with hitting from three were winning games. But overall, it's been a bad shooting, low-scoring tournament. I think the under has been probably the most consistent play of the whole tournament.
Yeah, and I was shocked by Arizona, because you're thinking that's a team. I mean, you had them as your pick to win the tournament, and you weren't alone in that regard. For them to lose to 6-seed Clemson was a shock. Alabama, UNC. If I got to be honest, though, that game didn't really surprise me as much, based on the fact that I watched UNC play Michigan State. And while the final score might not have, it wasn't indicative of how close that game was. I wasn't impressed with UNC. That kind of came back. You saw that again. Alabama finds a way to win. But let's talk about UConn, the Huskies. They are the team that got us the sole win on Thursday. And we'll talk about UConn here in a second as we get into our Final Four predictions. But you like the way they're trending, yes?
I think we've taken them every game, Jeff, and they've hit and covered every game.
Yep.
UConn, I believe, is the second team in history to have 25-point or more victories in one tournament. I think right now they're sitting on 3, which is just shocking. They have dominated every game on both sides of the ball. They've got a strong bench, which is something we're not seeing with the other 3 teams in this Final Four. Probably have the best players coach. I grew up watching those Hurleys. They're around my age, so I grew up hearing about them up there in North Jersey playing for their dad. And that kid he's coaching like a different level right now. His teams are playing at a different pace, and they're dominating. I think they've only been behind for like 38 seconds or something the whole tournament, and it's going to be a tough number to crack and going forward. I mean, they have deep, consistent ball play. They control the play. They control the ball. They don't turn it over, and they're shooting the lights out too. I mean, even their second team's coming in shooting the lights out, and that's a pretty tough weapon to put up against in these final 2 games that we're looking at.
All right, so Thursday again, we finished 1-2. We're kind of down in the dumps. I'm questioning a lot of things at Pez's picks, but then on Friday we totally rebound, and NC State beats Marquette in dominating fashion, and they cover the 6 points, or they're actually getting points because it's 11 seed against a 2 seed. You picked that one, and then Purdue wins, beating Gonzaga handily, covering the 5-point spread. So we rebound with a 2-0 Friday. What were your thoughts on those games?
In a true gambler, Jeff, I mean, probably we would have doubled down on those bets, right? You go 1-2, you think, I was close on one, maybe could have been 2-1. Hopefully people did double down. great teams. I mean, everything played out how we thought it would. NC State just had too much down low. They've got three guys, about 6'10", 6'11", and they've got some meat down there. They've got some big boys. They're football players, and they are just leaning on teams and wearing them down. Tight bench, though, for NC State. Something that I'll be a little bit worried about the next couple of games. But they're young. They can play on They can play on, no sleeping when you're 21 and in college, Jeff.
Yeah.
Great wins. And, on Friday, that keeps you going into the weekend. And, I hope people rode that UConn train because that was a consistent play to get through that final, that next 8. And I think it's a consistent play we're going to be looking at going out here.
So Purdue, NC State punched their ticket and eventually win on the weekend to get to the Final Four. But nonetheless, our plays last week, we finished 3-2. So if you combine those to the week prior, we are riding a 7-5 record heading into the Final Four predictions. Pez, what do you think about that?
Jeff, this is the month that gamblers, you either make or break your summer, Jeff. There ain't much after this tournament unless you're betting baseball every day. And we're going to get into some of that, but that's a risky bet. I mean, we'll compare that to playing the money wheel at the casino. 7-5 in this tournament, and a lot of things played out how people thought they would. UConn's dominating, but a lot of things did not play out as we thought. NC State, I mean, that's a team that nobody saw being there. Probably Alabama too, but Purdue and UConn chalk picks and similar styles of play as other teams that we've seen NC State play. So I like our chances going into these last two games as well. We got a lot of information last week watching. You get to watch these teams twice in a 4-day period, so pretty much everybody knows these teams inside out, and they do too. So it's going to come down to coaching. I think it's going to come down to style of play and shooting. I mean, UConn, if they keep shooting like that, I mean, I might put a couple NBA teams out there against that team. They are big, experienced. They got some swagger. They're showing no signs of letting up, and that's pretty awesome to watch in college basketball. You're not seeing dynasties much anymore with these guys leaving after 1 year. So pretty awesome to watch.
So the Final Four is finalized now. NC State, Purdue will be it's a 6:09 tip on Saturday, April 6th, 6:09 to be specific. And then the later game, the nightcap at 8:49 on Saturday, the Alabama Crimson Tide versus the UConn Huskies. Let's do this one at a time. We're picking both games in the Final Four. NC State's getting 8.5 points against Purdue. And Pez, you say keep riding the Wolfpack all the way to the championship game. Go ahead and explain yourself.
Well, Jeff, we have data supporting these picks too. NC State, I mean, again, it's an 11 seed that we talked about is a pretty awesome thing to get behind. That team has shown that their style of play is tough to beat in this tournament. We've got big men. We've got big size in their front line. When we look at what they did in the last game, NC State, and that's a big indicator that we're looking for with this pick. They held Filipowski, Duke center last game, or a couple games ago. 11 points, 3 and 12 from the field. The guy couldn't get going. And what we're looking for in this next matchup is, can they stop the big man? Purdue's got probably the best 1-2 punch, kind of like a John Stockton, Karl Malone with Eddie and with Smith. Point guard, high energy guy for Purdue. I mean, Eddie's awesome. I mean, I believe he's 7'4". I think the guy averages 32 minutes a game for Purdue. So can the big man, Diarra, can the big men of NC State put their will, push that guy around like they did Filipowski? I think if the referees allow that to happen, they getting 8.5 points for this game is a bargain. I suspect it's going to go down a little bit. I wouldn't be shocked if it broke down about 7.5. When you look at the numbers, Purdue has a lot of the advantages, points against. But when we get down to, what we talk about a lot in Pez's picks, just like NFL, quarterback play interceptions are number one indicator. College basketball, we're looking at turnover rate. Right now, 12th in the country. NC State, 9.5 turnovers a game. Phenomenal number. They've been below that in most of their wins so far. Purdue, when they win, they're holding that below 10 points. I saw a good number there. I mean, they have a great point guard. Smith's energetic. Guy can shoot. He's got a lot of energy. But when he turns the ball over, they lose. When they get to 13 to 15 turnovers, they're losing almost every game. And that's what I think NC State's going to be focusing on. and pushing Eddie from underneath. And I think they've got the size. As long as we don't get early foul trouble, I think NC State's got the size. They've got the power, and and I think looking at that Duke game, I think is what we're going to see a lot against Purdue. We've got Diarra, we've got Horn coming off the bench. We got a Middlebrook guy who's pushing 7 feet. So we've got 3 big men. They're going to try and wear that guy down. Purdue does not have an answer, a replacement. I mean, I don't think anybody has another 7'4" guy that can handle the ball and can move. I mean, the guy's a phenomenal player, but as long as they can keep him from within dunk distance and keep him from within easy layup distance, NC State's going to give Purdue a lot of issues. And, we're banking on this ACC defensive conference. I mean, I love the ACC, as we know, we talk about a lot. Pressure defense, and, they've got some swagger. When you come down out of that ACC winning it, you're taking Duke out. I mean, they got to be riding high. Purdue as well. That Purdue game, though, last game, that was a boxing match. I mean, they did not dominate that game with Tennessee. That could have gone either way. We had some suspect shooting in the first half from Purdue. It's kind of like both guys knocked each other out, and then Purdue ended up just kind of having the ball a little bit more going on their run at the end of the game. But Purdue showed a little bit of weakness, in my opinion. I mean, we're saying a slight weakness, Jeff. All 4 of these teams are great. So I love NC State getting 8.5 points. If it was an even game, we're probably going to go with Purdue. But that 8.5, and again, I'm not going to be blown away if NC State wins outright. But getting 8.5 points, I think 5 or less is something that I think that line should be closer to about 5 points, in my opinion. So we're going to take that advantage.
I was going to say, if you can get the 8.5, get it while you can, because if you're
sure
saying
are.
it's going to be going closer to level, you want to get the advantage of those 8.5 points. And man, I'll tell you what, watching some of these games after doing this podcast with you, it is crazy to see when I'm watching games. And I even watched the women's game the other day between LSU and Iowa, and I'm watching and I'm like, oh man, you look at all the things that could cause a bettor, a gambler, whatever you want to call them, to have a heart attack. Is think about an 8.5 point spread. You're looking for a backdoor cover. People start foul shots. You go to double bonus. It would be nerve wracking. I don't gamble basketball, but I understand why you said how betting basketball can be absolutely a heart attack waiting to happen.
Well, and we've seen bad foul shooting, Jeff. I don't even want to talk about with these teams. Nobody's a good foul shooter right now. I mean, 75% right now is a pretty strong number, and that's horrible. That's 1 out of 4 foul shots. Your money's on the line here. We saw bad foul shooting when the pressure tightened up from everybody but UConn. I mean, those guys seem to drain everything. NC State made some big shots down the stretch, and that's something to look forward to. You're hitting the nail on the head. College basketball or NBA basketball, talk about stress. The NFL, we get timeouts. There's no timeouts except for foul shots, and it's just unbelievable. And we haven't seen any buzzer beaters, Jeff. And I think we have to. That's probably a good prop play to look at. Will we have a buzzer-beating, game-ending shot in these Final Four? Hopefully, we need one. I mean, they need a little bit more excitement this March Madness this year.
Yeah, well, let's go to the nightcap. Alabama, UConn. The UConn Huskies are spotting 11 points. You say, I mean, you've pumped these guys up all tournament. The UConn Huskies, you're saying, hey, stick with them, even though they're spotting double-digit points. They've covered double-digit point totals every step of the way for us here at Pez's Picks and covered them all. So you're saying keep that trend going, take UConn over Alabama.
So, the data is showing, that 11-point spread, Jeff, and right now, 81 points a game UConn's averaging. Alabama comes in number 1 in the country still, averaging about 91 points a game. Defensively, UConn coming in at 63 points a game, and Alabama's coming in dismal. 356th team in the country defensive, giving up just under 82 points a game. So, you do some quick math here. I suspect that Alabama is going to be held in the 60s or maybe 70 points, and I suspect that UConn is going to be scoring their normal 81 or more. When you're giving up 81, I think UConn's going to hit their average at the very least. So even a marginal shooting day, we're going to see UConn putting up 80-plus points. And if that defense holds, which it has against every team, I'm going to be surprised if Alabama cracks 80. I mean, if they do, then we're in a tie ball game here. If they hold Alabama to 60-some%, 60 points some shooting, then this should be an easy cover. There's a little bit more data, a little bit more of an advantage we found. Currently, like I said, number 1 point scoring offense in the country, Alabama, coming in about 91 points. They have the number one strength of schedule, which is pretty important reason why they are in this situation. They've played against good teams. The problem, they are 3-7 against top 25 teams this year. UConn 9-2 against top 25 teams. So a significant advantage there. UConn, I think they've had probably about the 50th toughest schedule, but they've played some big teams in this tournament. Right now, they are ranked number 2 team if we go down player for player. And Alabama's coming in about the 9th ranked team, that even though, we have teams knocked out. So I think all the indicators point to UConn, whether it be bench play, coaching even. The guy's been there. He's done it. As a player, he's been in these big situations. I mean, the Hurleys have played basketball their whole life. We have one last special bonus advantage for the UConn Huskies, Jeff. One, Bill Murray, potentially the greatest American comedian of all time. His son is a UConn Husky assistant coach. Bill Murray has been at every game, Jeff. When you have Caddyshack presence on your side, I don't think you can lose, Jeff. I don't think anybody can lose with Bill Murray on their fit. He somehow gets in the middle of their crowd, right behind their little fan hut that they have. His head's popping up every second, Jeff. Phenomenal. A friend of Eddie Vedder, the greatest musician in American history, a great golfer, Bill Murray. I mean, the guy checks every box. So with that, I can't imagine UConn losing this or not covering that spread. I can't see him not winning by 15 or 20. I think this game's going to be a blowout, and I think Alabama's kind of Cinderella slipper is going to be – I think that glass is breaking, Jeff. I think this is it for that team.
All right, so our final 4 picks and to make it to the national championship. Again, plus 8.5, take the NC State Wolfpack. Pez said it. I'll reiterate what he said. He could see if it was just a straight up pick taking Purdue. So Purdue might punch their ticket to the championship game. But if they keep it close, like we think they will, NC State, you'll win your bet. And then UConn minus 11 over Alabama for all the reasons that you mentioned. I brought up the women's game. And I brought up, obviously, Caitlin Clark. That was a big story. The LSU Iowa game. I'm not asking, do you follow it, but do you ever consider gambling on women's basketball, or is that a different realm that you just don't go into?
Jeff, my colleague, the Action Man, is a huge WNBA gambler, and that's something that I don't follow that very tightly. But he claims that the lines are a little bit more consistent, and shooting is too. I find that right now in the women's game, we're seeing better shooting. Yeah. Clark, she can play on any of these guys' team. Her range is about 2 steps in from half court. I can't think of a college shooter right now that's got that kind of range. Amazing player. I wish we would put a play in on that game. And it's something we're going to have to start working into our algorithms here. Women's college basketball is here to stay. I believe their attendance is just as good as the men's tournament's gotten so far, and their TV viewing has been out of the park. So she's awesome, Jeff. That amazing put. She put up 44 in that game, and I mean, they were down, and she's like a Reggie Miller of women's college basketball. The way she can shoot, and she can get to the hoop too, and that's double threat for that one right there. Great to watch, and I did enjoy that game. That was a fun one.
That game between LSU and Iowa, which was obviously the marquee matchup, which I'm shocked that whoever developed the brackets didn't have that set up so that if they met again, it was going to be in the national championship game. It had over 12 million viewers, which was better than, I believe, the World Series, NBA Finals, and a lot of other male sporting events.
Sure.
Kudos to the women. I got to be honest. I watched the fourth quarter, so they got me.
Well, and it's fundamentally probably a more sound game. I mean, it's a little bit more of X's and O's and working the ball around, and it's fun to watch. I mean, women's sports and girls' high school sports. I mean, you've got great coaching now at every level. I mean, we're talking it's just as big time as men's sports, and that's pretty awesome. I mean, I wish I had a daughter, Jeff. My Sicilian wife gave me a son, and he's either going to be a potential Sicilian crime boss or he's going to be a doctor, one or the other, Jeff. But with a girl, it's always gold with those daughters, and I'm jealous of my buddies that get to take them to their games and stuff. It's a fun thing.
Well, I have 4 of them, so I'll tell you what that's like.
You're the luckiest man on FFSN, Jeff. That's what it is.
All right. Hey, just to let the listeners know out there, or viewers, we are going to be back on Monday morning with a very special Pez's Picks. It's not going to be at full length. We're not going to do a full 25 to 30-minute podcast, but we are going to be giving you picks for the national championship game, which will be on Monday. So make sure you're on the lookout for that. But Pez, do you have any other plays this week? I know that this is the last week before the Masters. It's the Valero Houston Texas Open, I think is what it's called now. Yeah, the Valero Texas Open. Do you have any plays on that? Because I do.
Jeff, I'm throwing a name out there. It's going to be 100-to-1 shot. It's either Scotty Scheffler or 100-to-1 or greater long shot to win these tournaments. Golf is in a weird situation, as you know right now. Scotty Scheffler's playing on a different level, but if he misses 2 putts, it's 1,000-to-1 shot guy. So we're going to go with Johnny Vegas, one of my favorite Central South American Tour players. Johnny Vegas wins to get into the Masters. The greatest name in golf, Johnny Vegas, is what we're going to go with. I believe he's Ecuadorian, or maybe Panamanian. I'm not positive, but Johnny Vegas, I don't know. He's probably about 9,000-to-1. So let's throw $10 on him. Great name, great town to be in this weekend.
Well, Scotty Scheffler's taking this week off, and I love what he did. He played last week. He was a putt away from potentially winning a third straight tournament. He's taking this week off. I guarantee you he's already in Georgia. I'm sure he's working on his game. Tiger's there at Augusta National. Not that it matters because he's probably not going to make the cut or finish 4 rounds of golf anyways. But
that's an early jab, Jeff. I don't know.
It is an early jab.
I'm afraid of Tiger. He'd kick my ass. That guy's buff, Jeff. As my kid says, I need to get buff like Tiger Woods.
But here's my place for the guys that now some of these people, Rory McIlroy, Jordan Spieth, a lot of these players are using this as a ramp up for the Masters, and it's just a different approach. So believe it or not, Rory is the odds-on favorite to win. I am not a Rory McIlroy fan. I don't think he has it anymore. He's more focused on the Masters. We'll talk about that next week. But I like Jordan Spieth in this tournament. He's plus 2,000. That's my favorite pick. My long shot pick is Tom Kim plus 6,000. I just think that he's one of those guys that can get hot at the right time. The majors are coming up. If you want some tournament specials, here's one for you. Spieth and Corey Connor to finish top 20 plus 500. Or if you want some worse odds, any two in the top 20, and that includes ties Max Homa, Colin Morikawa, or Alex Noren plus 125. So
I like that. I love Tom Kim. I hope his injuries. I hope this is just him testing out that he's back, because I think he's a potential Augusta winner. That kid's got game. Yeah. He's got short game. I mean, he's got every shot in the book. But Spieth, I mean, I think he's won this twice, hasn't he? I mean, this guy.
He has. Yeah.
He grew. I think he lives near here, so I think he hosts. I think Jason Duffner, and I think his crew, Fowler, if he's playing. I think those guys all stay with him this week. So. Maybe if Duffner's in the field, maybe cut the bet. Make the cut bet would be good, or maybe a top 20 with a Duffner. Who knows?
This is not a deep field in this tournament. A lot of guys are already thinking about Augusta, and they're already there, and they're already working on their game and getting used to the course and looking at pin placements and all that stuff, which makes me wonder why these players aren't doing that. But nonetheless, they have to play in so many of these tournaments, and like you said, this is Spieth's thing. So. Any final thoughts, Pez, before we call it a show, whether it's about basketball, golf, or anything? You have any soccer plays or anything? What's going on there?
Jeff, I was hoping you forgot, and I'm retiring from Manchester United gambling. I watched that game, 95 minutes, the worst Manchester United game I've seen over a decade, and they score, and then Brentford a minute later scores in the 96th minute, and we tie, which is a loss for us, and probably the loss of a job for their manager. I'm not even saying his name anymore. The guy's going to be gone. And we can't have a Dutch guy coaching that team. We need a strong British guy in there. And so we'll see, Jeff. I don't know. That disarray in Manchester, unless you're a Manchester City fan, then you're a criminal. So that's for another conversation, Jeff. Criminals and then wanted criminals on that Manchester City team. That's all I can say.
There you go. Well said. Well, listen, folks that are listening, we'll be back on Monday morning to have a special Pez's Picks podcast all geared towards getting you ready for the national championship game, whoever that may be, in NCAA men's basketball. We'll have next week. We'll be doing a lot of stuff about the Masters leading up to the first major of the golf season. We'll have it all covered for you here at Pez's Picks. Pez, thanks for your time. Be safe traveling out of that blizzard, and we'll see you. We'll see you this weekend.
Will do, Jeff, and good luck to everybody. Have great Final Four, and let's go Huskies.
There you go. We'll see you next time on Pez's Picks. Take it easy.